I grew up in a small town in northern Ohio, where there wasn't much to do after dark, unless you like driving around or sitting in parking lots. So one Friday night during summer break, my friends and I decided to check out the old cemetery on the edge of town. It was kind of a local legend, supposedly haunted, but more an urban myth kind of way. There were five of us: me, Kyle, Darren, Megan, and Jesse. We were all around 17, just bored and looking for something dumb to do. We brought flashlights, a Bluetooth speaker for music, and a bunch of dumb courage, if you get what I'm saying. We got there around 11 p.m. The cemetery was old, like Civil War gravestones old. There were huge weathered monuments, broken angel statues, and an actual stone mausoleum near the back with rusty iron gates that were always locked. At first, it was the usual teenage stuff: laughing, pushing each other, reading gravestones out in dumb voices. Megan dared Kyle to knock on the mausoleum door 3 times, which he did obnoxiously while yelling, "Is there anybody home?" Nothing happened. About 20 minutes later, as we were further back by the forest, Megan swore she saw someone walking near the mausoleum. Just a figure, no flashlight. We all turned to look, but it was too dark to make out anything. Kyle joked it was probably the ghost butler answering the door, but Darren froze and whispered, "Wait, who's that?" All of us looked where he was pointing, and we saw it just for a second. A figure, tall, thin, standing perfectly right behind the mausoleum. It didn't move. No flashlight, no phone, just standing there. Then it stepped out of view. We all went quiet. Jesse nervously asked if maybe it was another group of kids messing around, but it didn't feel like that. Something about how still it was, how close it had been without making a sound. We all decided to leave. As we made our way back through the cemetery, I looked over my shoulder. I swear I saw the same figure standing between 2 large gravestones maybe 30 feet behind us, still not moving. We picked up the pace, not quite running, but close. When we reached the front gate, Jessie let out this sharp yell and dropped her flashlight. She said she heard whispering right next to her ear. She was literally shaking. We didn't say much the whole ride home. None of us wanted to admit how scared we were. The next day I went back during daylight. I figured it was another group of teens. Maybe they left something behind. But the cemetery was empty. I walked to where we saw the figure by the mausoleum, and I noticed something that I hadn't seen the night before. The rustic gate to the mausoleum, it was open just a few inches, enough for someone to slide inside. There were drag marks in the dirt leading to the door, like something had been moved or pulled. I didn't tell anyone, but none of us have gone back since. I really think something dangerous was going on there that night. I'm glad we got out when we did. I work in private security for a small company that handles night patrols across different properties in rural Pennsylvania. One of my regular posts was a historic cemetery just outside of a town called Pine Hollow. It's mostly abandoned, except for a few family plots, and the town pays us to do twice nightly drive-thrus to prevent vandalism. It's usually quiet, sometimes creepily so. The cemetery doesn't have power, so it's pitch black at night. Just my headlights and a flashlight. A few months ago, I pulled in for my usual second check around 2:45 a.m. The fog was thick that night, clinging to the grass and curling around the gravestones. I drove in slow, doing my usual sweep with the spotlight. That's when I saw something near the old chapel building, a figure standing in the grass, right at the edge of the property line. I stopped the car and hit it with the beam. It looked like a man, maybe mid-30s, wearing jeans and a bright blue jacket, but something was off. He wasn't moving, not even swaying like someone would if they were standing still for a long time. Just completely frozen. I figured it was some junkie or someone passed out on something. I got out of the car and started walking towards him. "Sir?" I called out. "You can't be here, this is private property." He didn't answer. As I got closer, I noticed how stiff his posture was. It was a little too stiff. I circled around him with my flashlight, and that's when I realized it wasn't a person, it was a mannequin. One of those plastic department store ones, but really detailed. The face was molded with defined features, and the clothes weren't tattered or weathered. The weird thing is, his eyes weren't the usual painted ones. These had some kind of glass layer like fake pupils embedded inside. Someone had clearly put effort into it. I backed off and called it in dispatch. I figured it was a prank or some kind of art project someone dumped. Either way, it was creepy as hell, and I didn't want to leave it standing there overnight. But when I walked back to the patrol car, I noticed something else. The gate to the maintenance shed behind the chapel was slightly open. That gate was always padlocked. I'd check it every round. I went over with my flashlight and pushed the door open. The inside was trashed. Lawn equipment knocked over, storage bins open. In the corner, I found a folded duffel bag with duct tape and some spare mannequin limbs, and worst of all, a hacksaw. At that point, I called the sheriff's office directly. While I waited, I went back to the mannequin to take a photo, but it was gone, completely vanished. I checked the area, thinking maybe someone dragged it off, but the grass was undisturbed, no drag marks, no footprints. When the deputies arrived 20 minutes later, they searched the area, but didn't find anything. Not the mannequin, not the bag. I even showed them where I left the flashlight marked spot. Nothing. The next night, someone had nailed a handwritten note to the chapel door. All it said was, "Nice try." That was my last shift at the cemetery. I don't know what in the world was going on out there. A prank? A stalker? Something worse? But I keep thinking about how detailed the mannequin's face was. The fake pupils, the clean clothes, like it had been watched through. And how someone knew I'd find it. Alright, so this happened just a few months ago. I'm 16 and I work at this small pizza shop in a quiet suburb outside of Columbus. It's not exactly exciting work, but it's close to home and decent money for a high school kid. Anyway, I don't drive yet, so I bike everywhere. The shop closes at 10 on weeknights, and by the time we clean up and count the register, I'm usually out of there by 10:30, 11. My ride home usually takes about 15 minutes if I stick to the main roads. But there's a shortcut, a path that cuts through an old cemetery. If you take it, you shave off a solid 7 or 8 minutes. Now, this cemetery isn't tiny. It's about a block wide, fenced in with one of those old rusted black gates. There's a gravel path that runs through it, but no lights, no cameras, just you, the wind, and a bunch of broken headstones. I'd only taken it once before at night, and it freaked me out enough that I avoided it after that. But on this one night, I was running late. My mom had been on my case lately about getting home on time, and I figured I could handle one creepy shortcut. I had my earbuds in, hoodie up, and I was biking fast. As soon as I entered the cemetery, the air felt off. Still, like almost too still. The wind that had been blowing on the road stopped completely. I pulled out one earbud just to listen. I didn't hear anything. No wildlife, not even bugs. As I was about halfway in, near this big family mausoleum, I noticed someone sitting on a bench. They were dressed in all black and hunched forward, elbows on their knees and head down. I slowed a little, mostly out of instinct, like I didn't want to make a noise and disturb them. But as I passed, they lifted their head just enough to reveal their faces covered by a hood. I couldn't see any features, just a dark outline. I kept pedaling, just trying to get through the shortcut without thinking too hard. That's when I heard it. Tyler. Which is my name. Clear as day, calm, low, and close. I stopped pedaling for a second. I can't even lie, my heart was hammering. I looked behind me, expecting to see the person standing, maybe walking toward me. He wasn't. The bench was empty. Now at this point I was thinking to myself, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I misheard something in my music. I put my earbud back in and pushed harder on the pedals. Then I heard it again. No music this time, just my name. Tyler. Only this time it came from the other side of the path, by a row of really old-looking tombstones. I jerked the handlebars and cut off the path, trying to get out of there fast. I was riding across uneven grass now, bouncing hard, nearly tipping over my bike. As I got closer to the far gate, the one that opens up to the back alley behind the strip mall, I saw something lying on the ground, a phone. I stopped my bike almost immediately to pick it up. The screen was cracked, but the phone was still charged. The wallpaper was a school photo. I recognized the face. It was Noah, a junior who worked the Monday night shift at the pizza place. He hadn't been in school for a few days. People were saying he was sick or maybe on vacation, but here was his phone. I looked around, freaked out now. My first thought was maybe he dropped it earlier in the week and didn't come back for it, but something felt wrong. I opened the messages app. He didn't have a password for whatever reason. The last message he sent was to his mom. Heading home now, taking the shortcut. The timestamp was at 10:36 p.m., 4 days ago. I put the phone in my pocket and started riding again, faster this time. I didn't stop pedaling until I hit the main road and could see cars again. It wasn't until I got home that I actually let myself breathe. The next morning, I turned the phone into the police. They took my statement and asked a few questions about where I found it. I mentioned the figure I saw sitting on the bench, but admitted I couldn't really make out their face, just a hood. A few days later, one of the officers actually came by my house. Said they hadn't found anything else in the cemetery, but that the phone had helped narrow the timeline. He didn't give me much more than that. Unfortunately, no one ever came back. There were search parties, flyers, even a Facebook group that people kept updating for weeks. But eventually, it all faded. The only thing left was the thread of theories. That he ran away, that he was targeted, that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I haven't taken the shortcut since. And every time I close up work and hop on my bike, I glance towards that cemetery. The gate still rusted, barely cracked open just a few inches, like it's waiting for someone else to make the same mistake. I think it was a trap. I think someone put the phone there almost to lure someone in, and I feel like I was very close to becoming that person. Just for some background, I don't know if it's fair to say my girlfriend Lena and I are thrill seekers. We weren't doing parkour off rooftops or sneaking into military bases or anything, but we like creepy stuff. Abandoned buildings, dark tourist spots, strange road trip detours. That was kind of our shared hobby. Something about feeling out of place in places that were already forgotten. So when she mentioned this graveyard she'd found buried deep in some old Reddit post, I said I was down. It wasn't marked on any official maps, just GPS coordinates and a blurry screenshot of a fence in a small hill. It was about an hour and a half outside of town, through mostly farmland. We headed out around 9 p.m. on Friday. I remember because we stopped for snacks and gas, and I joked that we were fueling up for some Blair Witch nonsense. She laughed, that kind of easy laugh I miss now. Anyway, the cemetery didn't have a name. It was just listed as cemetery, abandoned, in the post. After 20 minutes of dirt road and another 5 on foot, we found it, a rusted gate barely hanging on by one hinge, choked by overgrowth. There was a small clearing ahead, and a set of crooked headstones just past the dead trees. I should have said something when I noticed the gate had been recently oiled. That kind of detail just didn't match the rest of the place. We walked in slow and quiet, no real reason to whisper. But the air just kind of made you want to. Lena was ahead of me, shining her phone flashlight on graves. One was from 1896. Another didn't even have a name, just a cross and the word mother. About 15 minutes in, I noticed something strange. Some of the flowers on the graves weren't dead, like fresh. No plastic either. Real, recently placed roses. I pointed out to Lena, and she knelt to check them. That's when we heard voices. Not nearby, but close enough. Coming from the far right of the graveyard, near a hill that dipped down into a grove of trees. We both stopped. The voices weren't loud, just organized, like chanting or praying. We killed our lights. I whispered, "Let's go." And we started moving back toward the gate. We got maybe 20 steps before a flashlight flicked on somewhere behind the trees. Then another. Then like 3 more. We ducked behind an old marble crypt, peeking through the vines. I could see maybe 8 or 9 figures wearing dark clothing, hoods, no mask. They were moving in pairs, scanning the cemetery. One of them had a dog, a big one. It was too dark to tell what breed it was, but it was barking. Lena gripped my sleeve hard, and I could feel her trying not to panic. I whispered, "We wait, then move." The flashlight beams crisscrossed through the branches. One passed right over our hiding spot. I literally wasn't breathing. She wasn't either. Then the dog barked louder, pulling toward us. The guy holding the leash yelled something. I couldn't make it out though. And they started walking in our direction. We bolted. No whispering this time, we just ran. I don't even know how I managed to keep my footing, but we tore out of there, back through the bush and across the dirt road. We made it to the car, my old Honda Civic, and I fumbled the keys like an idiot before finally getting the engine started. As we peeled out, I looked in the mirror and saw maybe 3 of them standing at the gate. One of them raised a flashlight and aimed it toward the road. Not waving, not chasing, just standing there watching us. We didn't talk much on the way back, just silence, broken up by shallow breathing and the occasional, "Are you okay?" The next day I tried to go back to that Reddit post to check the original coordinates. The thread was gone. Deleted. The user literally deactivated their account. Lana still talks about it sometimes. Says she wishes she could unhear the sound of that dog, or forget the way they moved in formation, like they had planned this out. As for me, I don't tell many people about that night, mostly because I think we were seconds away from disappearing, and no one would have known where to start looking.